Well, welcome everyone. My name's Cheesman. A lot younger than the other speakers, so you're probably like, who is this chick? What does she have to offer? But I am a nurse, a wife, a mom of 2 children, and I'm very passionate about documenting older generations and their wisdom and stories and advice. So I'm going to give you a little background before I dive into what I have to share today. And I also understand that everyone is on a different journey with their loved one, and so I know not everything is going to apply, but I hope that something will resonate with you. So I'm going to start just with this little background story of kind of how I got into this field, and hopefully everything works well.
My name is Cheesman, and I'm the creator of the Listening Ear Project, where I film and interview senior citizens to document their life stories. About 5 years ago, I was working as a home health nurse, and I was just fascinated with my patients' stories. I would go into their homes, and they would open up to me about their childhood and the wars they experienced and their life, and I thought, someone needs to record these. Someone needs to document these stories that are going to be gone soon. So, one day, I began filming. And I have filmed nearly 200 life stories. I felt the need to share it with the world. Every time I sit across from someone and they vulnerably open up to me, I feel like something in my heart changes. This generation has taught me about love and hard work and sacrifice, humility, what it means to forgive someone, and how we're all connected as human beings. They've given me life lessons that I couldn't have learned any other way. I wanted to become an advocate, to show that they're just regular people like you and I. Unfortunately, they're kind of brushed aside in our society. I felt the need to put them in the limelight. That's where they deserve to be. These beautiful people have given me more than I could have ever given them.
Okay, so that is a little bit of background. I have always felt a deep connection to older generations. My first job was in an assisted living center. I cared for my grandfather who had dementia. I lived with him for about a year. And then I went on to nursing school and knew I wanted to work in the geriatric field. And all of my peers were like, wait, you want to work with elders in the nursing field? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, why? Like, isn't that a stepping stone? But I just have always had a love and appreciation for older generations and the wisdom that they hold. But the reason why I started filming and documenting was because, well, here's my best friend, Cleo. I met her as a nurse. And again, just my love. I would rather hang out with Cleo than girls my own age. But the reason why I started filming was because as I was working as a nurse, sometimes I would have, 20 plus patients, and it would be so overwhelming, and I'd be running the meds and doing wound changes and all of these things. But I realized when I took the time to actually listen to them, whether it was them complaining or talking about their grandkids, I saw a physical change in them when they knew that they were heard and seen. And that's when I realized the power of listening. The other reason why I filmed was I realized how important it is to document history. We, soon enough, will no longer have World War II veterans left, and they won't be firsthand accounts anymore. And one of the first life stories that I filmed was actually a patient of mine. And him and his wife had built the home they lived in, and they had flown airplanes together that they literally built together. And they were this adventurous couple that broke every stigma in the book. And I was like, someone needs to document their story. This is amazing. And so I filmed it, and then a couple months later, he unexpectedly passed away. And his family was just so grateful to have, you know, them together in their home that they built, documented. And then the last reason is just to advocate for a generation that often is overlooked and is ignored and is irrelevant, right? But I have learned so much from my older friends that I wanted to be an advocate for them and help others see the value and wisdom that they can give our society. So I know that many of you may have loved ones who aren't their vibrant older selves, the ones with all the stories and the personality. They might have changed a bit, and I saw that in my grandpa, and I had wished that I filmed him sooner, that I started this idea, you know, before he got dementia. But the message that I want to share is that it's never too late to document. If they're alive, you can document their life. Even if they aren't themselves, there are ways to still preserve their legacy. So I'm going to share a couple clips. The first one is of my neighbor, and this was back before I got good equipment, so the quality is terrible. But my neighbor Cheryl, she had cancer, and she actually passed away about a month after I filmed this. But this is her husband, Reese, and I just did like a 2-minute video of them together. And I wanted to share this because it doesn't have to be picture perfect. This is real, this is raw, this is real life, and yet it's still documentation. And how beautiful that I was able to document him in the process of caring for his wife. So I'll share this.
One of the things that we've done that's been a real strength to our marriage, we've always tried to pray together every day, particularly at night.
It's true.
And that's been a real strength to us. She is a very kind and forgiving person. She has no enemies.
Well, thank you, darling. He has a very tender heart.
You don't want to see someone that you love have to go through this.
But she's still pretty.
He's still handsome.
We'll be together again.
Yeah.
This is one more example. That was just a candid shot I got after I filmed my friend Robin's grandpa. And he also has dementia, and this, again, was after the interview. It was just a candid shot, but I wanted to give another example, showing that it doesn't have to be, you know, perfect, professional, like at their highest self. It can just be an authentic capture of them in a nutshell.
Oh, my Robin, you're a special, you're not an ordinary bear, that's what I tell people. You're not an ordinary bear, that means you're a special gift to me and my family.
You're not an ordinary grandpa.
Well, I'm different anyway, that's for sure. I love you, my Robin.
I love you, Grandpa.
You say, what is love? Well, I love my Robin.
Love you too,
whatever
Grandpa.
that means.
So, like I mentioned, he did have dementia, but the one thing he didn't forget was that he loved his granddaughter. And because I happened to have my camera still rolling after we captured that moment, the beautiful thing is that we have these little guys in our hands all the time. It takes 1 second to snap a picture, whether it's your child taking a picture of you caring for your loved one. or you taking a picture of your loved one, capturing them on voice memo. You can record their voice or a quick video of them. So there are several ways. I've interviewed a lot of people who have had dementia, and oftentimes the short-term memory is gone, but some of those long-term stories are still there. They remember their childhood. They remember what they did growing up. They remember what brought them joy. So again, there are still ways to document. One tool is memory recall, as many of you may know. Whip out the pictures, see if it jogs any memories, and have the camera rolling while they're looking through them. Or take a picture of them with a sentimental item if they had a favorite doll growing up, or if they played baseball as a kid, give them a baseball, put it in their hand, film them. If it brings up any memories, document that. And then music, obviously, I don't know if you guys attended the class before this, but it was amazing what music can do. And I have a clip that I want to share with you guys of a couple. She was in the late stages of Alzheimer's, and this is her husband. I filmed his life story. She was in her bed. She was unable to, I guess, contribute to the video as far as memories. But afterward, we went to the room, and the daughter was hoping that maybe there would be something that could happen, but she was pretty much nonverbal, other than music would sometimes come out of her, because she was a singer all growing up, and we just happened to capture this moment of them together, and it was pretty miraculous.
Okay, honey, sing with me. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day.
I've got a wonderful feeling.
Everything's going my way. My shoulder.
It's the truth.
It's actual.
Everything is satisfactual.
Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-ay. Wonderful feeling.
Wonderful day.
Yeah. I love you. Oh, yes, I do. I love you. If you break my heart, I'll cry. So be sure it's true when you say I love.
Sorry guys, I don't know why it's lagging, but that was just a really tender, special moment, and because I had my camera right there, their family now has this moment captured forever. So it really doesn't take much other than pressing record. This is a picture of my grandma's locket. So I don't know if you can see, but there's a picture of my grandpa and a picture of her, and he gifted this to her when they got engaged, and she has it around her neck on their wedding day in 1942. And my sister and I fought over it, and she won. But this is just another example of a sentimental item. Like if I handed this to my grandma and she was able to recall, you know, where this came from, those stories. And if she is nonverbal and isn't able to do that, there are other sources, right? It doesn't have to be directly from the source to document history. You can ask a relative or neighbor, friend, where this item originates. Again, pictures are huge, and documenting, you know, who was in the photo, that's important as well. Many of you are in the thick of caregiving, right? So the last thing you want to do is how am I going to document history? But I came up with this term actually like an hour ago. Instead of a designated driver, designated documenter of the family, and who has their phone with them every second of every day? I mean, all of us, but more so than us, the grandkids, right? They're on their phones constantly, and how beautiful would it be to designate the grandchild or great-grandchild? Can you be the family documenter? They're contributing to the caregiving. They're having an experience where they're able to bond with their grandparent and create memories, and then at the same time, they're documenting the history of that loved one. As I mentioned earlier, it doesn't have to be exactly from the source. If there are stories or photos or memories. They can be written down, recounted by others, friends, neighbors, aunts, uncles, or children as you come together and kind of remember, those fond memories. And then again, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be this fancy video. It can be just snapping a photo of your loved one, whether they're interacting with grandkids or, recalling a memory with a physical item. You can always just snap a photo. And this is an example of just a simple photo. You might not think that it's much, but this photo is one of the most important things to me. I lost my father-in-law last year to renal failure, and we're coming up on our 1-year mark next week. And I remember them coming over last year to drop off a cake for my daughter's birthday, and I just had this urge to just take a picture. It was so random. And that was the last time that my kids were with him. So it might seem insignificant in the moment. It might not mean much to you, but after, when they aren't with you, it will mean so much that you took the time just to snap a picture or record a video. This is another tool that I have, and I just share it with everyone so we can upload it to the website. But I filmed and interviewed elders for six and a half years now. And I spent years refining this questionnaire down to like the good stuff, right? The basics in chronological order. And I did it in a way that it kind of goes from basic to more personal, because a lot of people do feel uncomfortable and aren't the most open people or generation, if you will. So this is available to you if you want, but it just kind of goes through their life. And if it seems overwhelming to them, you can do a question a week. If they're nonverbal, you can ask, again, family members. If they feel more comfortable instead of being filmed, which I'm biased because I just love capturing voices and mannerisms and laughs and all of that. But if they feel uncomfortable with that, hand them this questionnaire, see if it jogs their memories, have them jot down notes, write down memories. But this can be a really good tool, and especially for grandkids, to go over to Grandma and Grandpa's on a Sunday and ask one question to learn more about them. I've found it is very powerful to sit across from a person phones away and connect human to human. There were so many times where the kids were there during the interviews, and I heard stuff like, I've never heard that story. I had no idea Dad felt that way. And so when you really ask someone and you're connecting with them and they know that they're heard, it's a beautiful transition. A lot of times it was like the most gruff, grumpy farmer, and he was like, I don't want to do this. Why are you here? My daughters make me do this. And then by the end of the interview, we're like crying together, and he's just happy, because who doesn't want to be heard? Who doesn't want to feel valued? It really is just a beautiful process to see when those walls come down and the vulnerability opens up. It can create a really special bonding moment. I'll scroll down a little bit. So yeah, there's 25 questions, and again, question a week, or you can jot it down yourself. But yeah, you guys will have access to this. Again, you can hand them the questions, write down, record their responses. Again, if they don't want to be filmed, you can also use voice memo on your phone. I don't know if everyone has an iPhone, but that's all I know, so that's what I'm referring to. And then the biggest message is, yes, documenting is important, but connection is more important. So having them know that you are listening, that you are hearing what they're saying, responding appropriately. Sometimes during my interviews, I would get caught up in, the equipment and all that, but just connecting with them is the whole point, really, and creating those memories and learning more about them. There are other ways to document as well. And I think it's important to to document what they loved and what they love. If they're still able to do what they love, film them doing that. Take a picture of them in the garden. Even if it's reading a book, snap a picture of them, because you'll want to remember, you know, what made them them, and pass that on to their posterity. One of my favorite questions to ask people is, what brings you joy? Or, you know, writing down what brought them joy. If they're unable to enjoy what they once did, write it down so you remember that. And again, I'm always going to say snap a photo. This is kind of goes along with documenting items and where they came from, but this is a clock that my grandma gave to me. My sister got the locket, I got the clock. But I don't even know who it's from. My mom thinks it's my grandma's but we didn't have anyone write it down, so just another you know, little tip to write down where things are from, or if they are still in their home, film their home to capture their essence, who they were, where they came from, because it's so important to pass that down, especially when they're no longer here. This is my friend Grant. He is a runner, and this is just a short clip. I have a full video of him, but I would see him running around my parents' neighborhood, and I was like, who is that guy? He's like 90. Just every time I see him, he's running. And so one day I just knocked on his door and I asked him if I could get to know him. And I ended up filming his whole life story and became friends with him, and found out he runs marathons all the time, and he didn't start running until I think he was 68. But I filmed him run a 50-mile race on Antelope Island at the age of 87, and he's no longer with us, but I have all this footage of him doing what he loved, and his family knew him by his running, and he'll be remembered for his running. And so I think it's important, if your loved one is able to, you know, do what they love, to capture that. So here, this is just a snippet, but. So quick, but yeah, Grant, my guy. Another one is recipes. Recipes are huge, or just family history in general, passing that down. This is a video, and this is professional. It doesn't have to look like this, but I filmed my mother-in-law and my daughter making her famous cinnamon bread. I'm not a baker, and I'm not a cook. My mother-in-law is, however. So really high bar marrying my husband, but I probably won't make this bread until she's gone because, again, not a baker. But I documented the recipe so that we will have it forever, and also captured her and my daughter so that they can have this video forever as well. So that just recipes, simple way to document, and something we'll have forever, because we know I'm not going to remember all the different steps. Again, if this seems overwhelming, the biggest thing is just to write something down. Just simplify, simplify, simplify. I don't know if this app would be helpful to anyone. I use it for my children, and I thought I had it on a slide. I'll have to write it down. But it's called Keepsake, spelled Queepsake, and they just text me once a week. Like, what did Bo learn today? What was something funny Mabel did today? So you could just jot something down. What made you smile? What did your loved one do today that made you laugh? Write down these little things, because everything is a blur right now, but afterward it will be so nice to have just those little moments as you are on your journey with them. And I have a friend here today, actually, who's a caregiver, and she gave me some ideas that she has documented her mother and their relationship. But she saves her voicemails from her mom, and even though her mom can't make a phone call anymore, she still has those voicemails with her voice. And another idea she gave me, which was genius, and again, this is not a plug for Apple, but she has an iPhone, or Apple Watch, And she, when she's talking to her mom, she just puts her on speaker and then presses the voice memo on the watch and records their conversation. And that just saves in her phone. So the voice memo app is so handy. You can just, press record so quickly and then have the voice documented. And let's see what else. Man, I don't know where my other slides went. But I've talked all about documenting your loved one's life and their journey, but I think it's really important to document your own in this process. This is history. You caring for your loved one, that is part of your story, and it's important for you to document that. And it might look ugly, it might look messy, but it's important to document those emotions and the feelings, and even if you have a complex relationship with your loved one, write about that. I was able to watch my mom care for my grandpa for years, and I think that's honestly why I had the seed planted in me. A huge part, at least, was watching her care for him. And I know one day I'm going to be caring for my parents, most likely. And if I had, some notes written down, even just her experiences, her feelings about caregiving, how important will that be for me when I'm going through the same thing? And sometimes when I'm journaling, I'm like, oh, I don't want my kids to see like the dark parts of me. But, they're likely going to have dark parts of themselves and face dark and hard things, and they will feel less alone if they know you went through that as well, right? And so I think it's super important to not forget yourself. Yes, document your loved one, document your family history, but also write down your story. And take that time, because your future generations will also benefit from that. I mentioned my father-in-law and how he passed suddenly. And it was quite ironic because here I was, telling everyone, document your loved one, film it before it's too late. And I remember I filmed the first half of his life story, and it was on my to-do list to get that second half, and he passed away, and it was too late, and I kicked myself for months. But I had 1 hour of footage of the first half of his life, and it really doesn't matter how long it is. It just matters that you do it. Even if you have 10 seconds, you won't regret it. And I wanted to mention that story because some of you may feel like, oh, it's too late. Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I film before? Why didn't I document before? But like I said, if they are alive, you can still document them. They are still them, and they still have parts of them that you can record and document. And if we don't do it, who will, right? Like if we aren't preserving their legacy, who's going to do it? I've seen this over and over. I've had so many friends pass away. In fact, Grant, the runner, I drive by what once was his house, and he homesteaded vineyard. His relatives homesteaded, or ancestors homesteaded vineyard. So he had a bunch of land and property, and he was still out there farming, and his land and home and all of that is just gone now to the ground. His kids sold it. They're probably going to build some commercial thing on it, and it's just like when I first saw that his house was just being torn down, I cried because it's just like a part of him is gone. His history is just gone, and so that's why it's so important to document. I'm going to share one last video. I'm done a little bit early, and then I'll kind of wrap up, and then if you guys have questions, we can do that. This is tiny. I haven't shared it yet, so this is just a screen recording, but it'll work.
Exactly 1 year ago, we lost my father-in-law to renal failure at the age of 73. It has been especially hard on my kids as we have grieved his loss this last year. On his birthday, we had each grandkid choose a balloon for him, and my daughter chose red because it was his favorite color. Later that night, as I was laying next to her in bed, I told her a red balloon could be her sign for Papa. A few weeks later, I found the only photo of them together and saw something in the background. Now we see red balloons everywhere, like at the family Christmas party when the host randomly had a single red balloon tied to her. Some may call it a coincidence, but I like to believe they're still with us.
Exactly. That was just a little example of what my personal beliefs are in regards to when our loved ones do pass, which is that I think they are still very much involved in our lives. I've mentioned I've filmed 200 plus elders, and so many of them have passed away. But I have little signs, and I feel them, and I feel their spirits, and I draw from their strength and what I learned from them, and I remember the wisdom and the stories that they shared, and they have molded me into the human that I am, and I will hopefully be able to pass that on to my posterity. But I truly believe that, you guys are, I'm making assumptions, but in a tough spot right now, but I really do think that that you will be thanked one day, and you will feel them, and that they will be grateful for the tough work that you guys are doing. So yeah, document, take the picture. It's never too late. Do you have any questions? Yeah.
Okay, so I get documenting all the different ways. What about compiling all of that?
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one. Honestly, right now what I'm doing is I'm using Amazon Photos to organize them into different bins. So I'm doing like my kids, my mom and dad to have their own separate folders. So say we have a funeral one day, I'll have all of their, memorabilia in those folders. There are, it's hard with video editing, but there are free things. Like if you have a Mac, there is, I don't know if it's still called iMovie, but there's a way to put the clips together. Honestly, YouTube is your best friend. I graduated from YouTube University. I'm all self-taught when it comes to videography. I learned everything on YouTube. So if you're wanting to compile videos, or even just honestly YouTubing how to organize, photos or documentation, scanner is a huge tool to have those, my mom is going through, because she has all the physical photos, right, where mine are all online, so she's going through scanning them and then putting them in folders. So it is a hefty, process, but it's worth it to have it organized and so people know where it is, and always back up everything. Put it on a hard drive, put it on 2 hard drives, so that if something happens, you still have it, because I have lost my fair share of videos to the internet space. Any other questions?
I was just going to remind everybody about your Instagram. She has the most amazing, inspirational Instagram page. What do you call it?
Yeah.
It's called Listening Ear Project.
The Listening Ear Project is my Instagram.
She posts these amazing stories of love and just, how do you
Thank you. Yeah, so I started just filming for fun because I loved it. I loved connecting, loved the stories. It snowballed into a business where families hired me to document their loved ones, create legacy videos. But then that took over my life, and I had 2 young kids, and I was working nonstop, and I stopped one day just mid-edit, and I was like, what am I doing? All these people that I'm interviewing are telling me that the most important thing in life is to connect with my loved ones, and that my kids are at home, and I have a nanny all day, every day, and they're telling me to slow down and be present. And right then and there, I let go of the business and let go of my 10 contracted employees, and had a dark couple months trying to figure out what my identity was. But now I'm back to just filming for fun, and my latest project is I'm just going around asking seniors what their definition of love is, because I feel like we need more of it in the world, and who better to have it come from than those who have loved the longest. So that's kind of what I'm working on now. So yeah, you can keep up to date with those videos that I'm sharing on Instagram if you want. Thanks, Suzette. Any last other questions? You guys might get out early.
Have a break. Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you guys.